Item 79, to recognize and reaffirm under federal and state law all Louisiana residents with potential discrimination claims or afforded legal remedies, and to express that the East Baton Rouge Parish Metropolitan Council finds discrimination of any kind abhorrent and contrary to our nation, state, parish, and stand for, and further that the Metropolitan Council finds proven vital that all residents of East Baton Rouge Parish be aware of the protections under applicable of current state and federal laws applicable, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission rulings by Councilman Matt Watson and Councilwoman Fryberg. Ladies and gentlemen, this item 79 will be deleted from the agenda, according to Councilwoman Fryberg and Watson. It will be deleted from the agenda. This is a public hearing. Anyone wish to speak on item 79? If you wish to speak, is it Caleb Manning? Caleb Manning, you wish to speak?
I just wanted to be very brief and say something that's very obvious, that every person in Baton Rouge deserves legal protection against discrimination. And so what we need is not a resolution, but an ordinance, actual law, that'll work to protect everybody in this city, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity. And that in effort to offload the legislative and moral burden of this issue onto the federal government is no good way to show support to people who are suffering. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please. Ladies and gentlemen, public hearing, Morris Welch.
This resolution is at best flawed and useless, and at worst, a deliberate attempt to stall any meaningful proposals to discourage discrimination in Baton Rouge. As a resolution rather than an ordinance, it has no force of law. In the first whereas paragraph, it disparages the courts by characterizing the judicial branch as interrupting the work of the legislative and executive branches. In the second whereas, it asserts that the 14th Amendment extends equal protection and anti-discrimination guarantees to all residents. But if that had been sufficient in actual practice, there would never have been a need for further laws regarding civil rights, voting rights, women's rights, or a host of other issues, many of which remain in debate today as we struggle to fully implement the principles of equality voiced in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Then this resolution sends a very confusing, inconclusive, and largely negative messages to companies, their workers, and other individuals who may consider whether to move to Baton Rouge, and to students and other people who may consider leaving Baton Rouge for more welcoming places. Further, it asks that you surrender the Council's local responsibility for its citizens by implying that Baton Rouge should never provide any protections beyond what has been passed by the federal or state legislatures and interpreted by bureaucratic administrators. It also implies that protections should never be extended to groups beyond those specifically listed in federal and state laws, and should ignore and provide no legal remedies to other groups that have suffered disproportionate discrimination. This resolution fails to acknowledge that effectiveness of laws are heavily affected by the interpretations and policies that executive departments promulgate to administer them, and they often change whenever new administrations take office. For example, look at competing interpretation of many laws that are currently playing out now between the preceding federal administration and the current one. Finally, references to the governor's executive order are irrelevant. That was a largely political conflict over the powers between governmental branches, while this council is a legislative body clearly authorized to enact local laws. In conclusion, while I would not ask you to legislate anything that is prohibited by existing laws, I urge you not to abdicate your responsibility to consider issues that would expand, supplement, and enhance those laws to improve lives, both individually and collectively, in Baton Rouge. Please defeat this resolution and then give wholehearted support to any future efforts to include all citizens against unwarranted discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the public here wishes to speak is a William Conlon.
Thank you, council members. My name is William Conlon. I live at 561 East State Street. here in Baton Rouge. Council members, the LGBTQ plus community deserves to be able to provide for themselves and their families in this city. It is no surprise to anyone in the LGBTQ plus community that their jobs are constantly at risk because of their gender identity or expression and that their sexual orientation. That is why we need an ordinance including protection for sexual orientation and gender identity. Passing an ordinance law means protecting against discrimination for everyone, including the LGBTQ plus community, to build lives in this city and this parish. I am glad this resolution will be deleted because we need an ordinance with teeth that is a real law to protect everyone's right to be free from discrimination. And to any of those who object to these protections on religious grounds, I would like to cite a study by the Trevor Project's National Survey on LGBTQ Youth and Mental Health. Respondents from that study were from all 50 states, and 39% of those respondents were religious. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the public hearing will speak on item 79. On item 79. You come on. You give me your name and address, please.
Champagne Roundtree, 1777 Boulevard de Province, Unit B, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. You know, as I come before y'all today, I'm really aggravated that one, it has to be deleted. Because last time we had standing room only, but the Metro Council could not separate church and state. You look at the people in the society as they are, and you think of a lot of them as criminals or other offensive things. But who made them go into that limelight was you. You don't have an ordinance to protect them in the workplace. I work as a transgender advocate. I see this all the time. I, for one, have even seen it right here at the 19th JDC courthouse where my tax dollars built it. I was let go out of the 19th JDC courthouse because they didn't have transgender bathrooms. It made front page of the Advocate. But what bothers me even more is that none of you have to get that phone call in the middle of the night that your child is dead because they were out prostituting because they had no other way to make a living. 14 transgender females have been killed in the last 18 months in the South region. Sadly, 14 of them from Louisiana. We don't protect them, and then yet we allow others to discriminate against them. I've heard it here before. We're last at everything in Louisiana. We were the last ones to legalize gay marriage. The Supreme Court told you you had to do it, but you still tried to fight it. What kind of message are you sending to your neighbors, to your friends, to your other family members? Because Lord knows there's family members that's probably not out of the closet that you may have in your family. And they don't come out because of how you treat others. We have to stop sending the message of hate. We have to stop sending the message of we don't care. And we need to put laws in this city that are going to protect everyone, regardless of who they are or where they come from or what they do. I know this as an advocate because I have honestly gone out into the workplace and had trouble finding work. My company is one of the few that actually hire trans and don't care about whether you're trans or not. They care about, can you do the job? And that's what these people should be worried about. Can you do the job? What are your qualifications? The problem is, we sit back and then I've read articles from some of the Metro Council here saying that, well, we don't represent it because it doesn't show family values. Really? Can you wake up? Because you haven't seen what family values are, obviously. Most families this day is consisting of a single mother trying to make it a minimum wage job, trying to pay the bills, or a single father trying to do this. Or worse, it's a group of people who have to come together, who's no bloodline together, but they've bonded together because that's the only people who will accept them is those people in that group.
Would you please wrap up? You have 5 seconds.
I urge the Metro Council to learn. If there's one thing that they can learn, this is the state, not the church.
Thank you.
You need to separate.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak on item 79? Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Bonnie Kirsch, 3383 Crestwood Street. I feel the need to say that I'm married to a woman, so I feel like I have some, right to speak on this. Although normally I would say that really doesn't matter. I think that a lot of people are really angry today, and I guess I can understand that. But as a gay woman myself, I can say personally I've never been discriminated against. I have a couple of very good jobs. Yes, I believe in family values, but that includes my family as well, which includes 3 children, my wife and I. We have great jobs. We own a great house. We are doing just fine. We've never been fired. We've never been discriminated against in any way. When we got married, all the vendors were happy to work with us. I think that I'm not saying that no one faces discrimination. I would be dumb to say that. What I'm saying is I don't believe it's as rampant as some people make it out to be. I think that this is just a resolution. It's just information. It clearly didn't stop anyone from putting a resolution or whatever you want to call it on the agenda in a few weeks. So I'm sure this is being deleted, but it didn't have any merit in the first place. It wasn't going to do anything, as several of you have said. So and the fairness ordinance that came up a few years ago that I was also here to speak for it was very poorly written, and that's why it didn't pass. It didn't not pass because the Metro Council is against gay people. I'm personally friends with several of the people on the council, and they hang out with my wife and I. They're not homophobic, but you need to, if you're going to bring something in front of the Metro Council, it needs to be well written. Sometimes things will fail because of that, not because of people's personal values. So I hope that whatever is coming up is going to be well written and something that can actually do some good for what appears to be a marginalized community. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the public hearing, we're speaking on item 79. On 79. Yes, sir. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Devin O'Neill, 2930 Little Farms Drive in Zachary. I'm a pastor here in the Baton Rouge area, and just speaking on this item, one of the things that was said was separation of church and state. And so I'd like to cite something on that. I believe the Establishment Clause says government shall restrict religion in no way. The intent was always for religion to influence the government. Our founding fathers said all civil law must rest upon the law which is divine. If we get away from that, we welcome a curse into our city. And at the end of the day, we love gay people, transgender people. We don't want to do harm to them, but that would do harm to them. And so I would just reflect that on y'all as governing authority, that when we invite things that God said don't invite, we invite the curse in with it, and that would be harmful to everyone. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the public hearing, we speak on item 79. If you please state your name and address for the record, please.
Gary Chambers, 6620 Willow Springs. So I'm glad the resolution is being deleted. That's my position. There's going to be a lot of folks shocked when they get to heaven or hell, whichever one. There's going to be some gay people in heaven and some straight people in hell. Because the reality is, I'm an ordained minister. I know y'all shocked by that part too. But in truth, we don't miss God because of sin. If that was the case, none of us would make it. We miss God because of unbelief. That's how we end up wherever we believe folks go. You either believe or you don't. Now, the job of government, and I want to give numbers too. Of the top 10 states in America, not a single one is in the Deep South. The majority of the states in America in the top 10 have Democratic progressive legislatures. Let me get it together. Okay? And majority of them have Democrats as governor. When Republicans get out of people's bedrooms, I promise you, we're going to be all right. We spend too much time worrying about who sleeps with who. And for those who believe that religious freedom, well, if you go back 50, 60 years ago, there were people who wore hoods and wore capes. White and their religious beliefs told them that I didn't have a right to stand here. Their religious beliefs believed that folks that looked like me had no right to go to school with their children. As a matter of fact, they said some of the same stuff we say. We don't want them in our neighborhood. I don't want to do business with them. So me as a black man, I could never oppose people's rights being protected because I know what it feels like. My 75-year-old father, who was raised in this community, was born without all his constitutional rights. So in his lifetime, we had to give him constitutional rights, civil rights. And then we are debating whether or not we should do so. You should allow PSN to bring that ordinance, and everybody on this council should support it. If you say you support loving people. Another thing that the Bible says, love covers a multitude of sin. So don't make this about God, because I promise you, some folk going to be shocked when they get there. Some folk going to be shocked when they die and they realize where they wake up wasn't where they thought they was going. But it's not the path to discriminate against people. If I move into an apartment complex, nobody should be able to say because of who I sleep with at night, I shouldn't live there. And the same is for everybody else. And I hope that you guys will bring an ordinance forth that gives some teeth to give everyone equal rights within this community.
Ladies and gentlemen, the public hearing, we speak on item 79. Item 79.
Good evening, council members. My name is Eugene Collins, 924 French Street, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 7802. I'm the president of the Baton Rouge branch of the NAACP. And I am here today to say I'm glad that you struck the resolution, and I do think that we need an ordinance in place to protect this population. This is a highly marginalized population that if you don't present these protections, you only multiply the already historical gaps in health care, income equality, and all of those other measures that we have seen take place with this population. And to say that protections aren't needed, just do a little Googling. This population is still, to this day, beaten because of who they go to bed with. They're called names because of who they go to bed with or who they decide to love, and that's not our right. And I hear the religious argument, but the argument of government protecting its citizens should not go hand in hand. You do not have to agree with somebody's personal choice to believe that they need certain protections. Dr. King once said that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And I think that's what we're dealing with. This is a population that needs certain protections around income, that needs certain protections around employment, that needs to be acknowledged, and that conversation needs to be started. And that's why we elected and put some of you folks in the seats, to make sure that the marginalized populations were protected. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the public hearing, wish to speak on item 79. If you please state your name and address, please, ma'am.
Okay. Georgia O'Neill, 2930 Little Farms Drive, Zachary, Louisiana. I just wanted to state this, that, I know the resolution's been deleted, and I'm thankful for that, but because I believe that, this verbiage that we're using, sexual orientation, gender identity, is just way too broad. First of all, sexual orientation is just encompassing way too many different things. And you allow one thing, you're going to allow many things. And then at the same time, you're also encroaching upon religious freedom in a lot of different areas. And I know that there's ordinances and things that are coming along behind this. And so with this, with sexual orientation, even in California, they're already trying to say pedophilia is sexual orientation. That they are actually saying that in California right now.
Please.
And so the thing is that when we open the door for one thing, we're going to open the door for many things. And gender identity encompasses too many things. It's also encroaching upon not only our religious freedom, but also our as Christian business owners being able to make decisions about who we hire, who we are allowed to the different types of things that we're allowed to be able to be performed by our business, how our kids are handled, the things that are going on in our schools. And if we don't set these ordinances and resolutions in such a way that, yes, I don't believe in discrimination. I love all people. I've had many homosexual people, and we run a program for women that struggle with drug addiction and alcoholism. And I've had men program, and we've had many people that have dealt with homosexuality and all those different things. And I love every single one of them. But I will tell you this, that you can't give one person a freedom that's going to encroach on another person's freedom. If we don't make that line straight and we don't make it right so that all parties involved are protected, then we don't need to pass any policies in that way. Thank you.
Please. Can we please respect, please? Yes, sir. Louisiana, this public hearing, item 79. Yes, sir. You please state your name and address, please, sir.
My name is Cody Mack, 2225 College Drive. And for the record, sexual orientation is defined by heterosexuality, homosexuality, and bisexuality, not dog lovers. I'm glad this resolution is being pulled. This resolution does nothing to the point that it's offensive. In 2015, a Baton Rouge apartment complex suggested that me and my fiance, who is a man, we should get a 2-bedroom apartment because we would be more comfortable, even though there were plenty 1-bedroom apartments available. Why should I have to pay more for a more expensive unit just because they don't want 2 men in 1 bedroom? That's not fair. This resolution would have done nothing to help my case. We don't need a resolution. We need an ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the public hearing, we're speaking on item 79. 79. Can you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Sierra Simpson, 751 Carol Marie Drive. According to the Trevor Project report released earlier this year, 1 in 3 transgender and non-binary youth attempted suicide in the past 12 months. 1 in 3. Each episode of victimization, such as physical or verbal harassment or abuse, increases the likelihood of self-harming behavior. We need an ordinance in Baton Rouge that will protect LGBTQ people from discrimination and homelessness. LGBTQ families shouldn't be denied housing because of who they are. No one should be denied a job because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. This is serious. People are dying. The council had the chance to do something about this years ago, but refused, and Baton Rouge has suffered for it. This resolution is insulting, and the authors, Matt Watson and Barbara Freiberg, should be ashamed. It's time to stop playing with people's lives, do your jobs, and make things better here in Baton Rouge.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the public hearing, we're speaking on item 79. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Karen Muir. I live at 12054 Garden Oaks Avenue in Denham Springs. I just wanted to say I really appreciate pulling the resolution because of the fact that if you're going to discriminate against anyone, you've lost, because you have to have equal rights for all faiths, for all people. And if you're doing something in favor of one that affects another one negatively, and in this case it has to do with a lot of rights for a lot of people and a lot of things that are far-reaching after a resolution like this that doesn't include those people in mind. So I'm just asking that you would consider that, because it's so important. Across the nation, SOGI laws are being instituted that are causing so many ramifications, so many problems in employment, in housing, in schools, in many parts of the society. And I think we all have to realize that, remember, we can't discriminate against one in favor of another. We have to be fair, and that includes people of faith. It includes them because it is fair. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the public hearing, we're speaking on item 79. Please state your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Christine Assef. I'm at 4117 Blecker. I just want to point out a couple of things. Many businesses actually already have this in place within their internal policies. So when we start talking about infringement of policies, then why aren't we going up in arms at these infringement of discrimination that's happening within all of these businesses? Why aren't we boycotting them for including sexual orientation and gender identity? We're not, because we understand that it's something that we should be doing. And when it comes to discrimination, it just sounds like it's just normal. We shouldn't be doing it, right? And so these businesses have it. So there you go. In addition to that, I've been in the HR world for about the past 15 years. I can personally tell you that even though in my own organizations that I've ever worked for, I do my best to make sure that we're adhering to policies, not discriminating people, hiring them based upon skills, knowledge, abilities, things like that. I can tell you, though, I have faced difficult situations where I have sat across a table from someone who heard some jokes, and those jokes led them to feel uncomfortable and not want to be there. It's not something so much as, you're fired, we don't like you because you're gay. It's because they don't feel like they're being treated equitably. They leave, they move out of the city, they move out of the state because they don't feel like we are opening and welcoming to them. this happens. In addition, I'd just like to throw out there that 200 other cities have something similar to an ordinance which has been discussed frequently up here, as well as 20 other states have it in their state legislature. So also, our city already protects sexual orientation and gender identity for its city employees, as well as our state already protects sexual orientation and gender identity for state employees. So if it's okay for some employees and not for others, what's the deal?
Ladies and gentlemen, the public hearing, we speak on item 79. Please state your name and address, please.
Hello, my name is Erin Berry. I live at 155 Bellevue Drive in District 10. I just wanted to say real quick that we do appreciate y'all hearing us on this. It's very rare that you have both sides sitting in a weird position here on this, but we do appreciate you pulling this resolution because we don't want a resolution, we want an ordinance. Our LGBTQ neighbors need explicit protections since they don't have them at the state and federal level. And for us to just say we'd rather wait and see for the courts to decide when it is certainly within the purview of the Metro Council is pretty offensive, especially during Pride Month and during the 50th anniversary of something like Stonewall, which was a historical moment in the LGBTQ community. As Christine said, 200 towns and cities throughout the country have local protections and 20 states have them. The sky hasn't fallen. It's had implications, but it's not a negative thing. And I can probably tell you, I probably should have looked this up, how many of those probably rank higher than Baton Rouge and Louisiana as far as how well they're doing economically. I also wanted to say within our state, there's in fact 61% of our population that does agree with protecting against discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. And there's also been a lot of talk about religion. And I just want to say real quick that freedom of religion is important to all of us. This isn't about religion. The freedom of religion doesn't give us the right to impose our beliefs on others. In fact, it should motivate us to do what's right and help ensure our gay and transgender neighbors, family, friends can work, find a place, and overall thrive. I also just wanted to say, it was kind of funny walking here from my car. I noticed there's actually a mural on one of the buildings downtown that says you lose a lot of time hating people. And I just want y'all to think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the public hearing, we're speaking on item 79. Can you please give your name and address for the record, please?
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Harding. I am the president of the Progressive Social Network, and I live in District 7. So a year ago, representatives from our organization began sitting down with council members to just sort of talk about how we could come together and create some sort of policy change that would create protections against discrimination for all of the citizens in our city. You are all elected here to represent all of the citizens of Baton Rouge, whether or not you agree with who they love or what they look like, what the color of their skin is, what the color of their hair is, where they sleep at night. You're responsible for for protecting all citizens, and I hope that we can all agree that discrimination is always wrong. It's always wrong. It's always wrong. So we went down the road on this journey, and it has been a journey with all of you. Having countless conversations, spending lots of time hammering out particular language for an ordinance, meeting with every single one of you that would meet with us. We've talked to members of the public. We've talked to members in the business community. We've talked to members in the faith community, and what we found out is that Baton Rouge wants this to happen. Baton Rouge really wants this to happen. Frankly, after all the work that we'd done, with you all, most of you, several of you, we were pretty blindsided when we saw this resolution. It is surprising to see something, get so close to being there that could actually have true, real impacts on the lives of Baton Rouge people, to actually provide protections against discrimination, and then see something come up that does nothing. It does nothing to improve the conditions for the citizens of Baton Rouge. I'm so happy to hear that some people haven't experienced discrimination, but I know it's real. I think you all know it's real, and it's wrong, and you have the ability to do something about it. You have the ability to protect people. Last week, you were provided with the draft of an ordinance that will do that. I am so happy that you are pulling this resolution, because it is terrible and does nothing. And all we're asking for you to do is take your responsibility seriously, stand with the citizens of Baton Rouge, and do something by putting an ordinance up that creates protections for all citizens of Baton Rouge and makes this a place, a welcoming place, an equitable place, a fair place, a place of progress. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the public hearing will speak on item 79. Seeing none, public hearings closed. Council members, Councilman Watson.
Thank you, everyone who came up to speak today. I'd like to speak as to what was the reason behind this resolution. First, I wanted to share information with all residents of our parish about the history of protections from discrimination which currently do exist, are in effect in the state of Louisiana, and affect us all here in Baton Rouge. This includes language in the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. It includes Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Louisiana State Constitution. Specifically, when it comes to discrimination, I wanted to show that nationally we are in different opinions across federal circuits as to whether the word sex should be expanded from just biological sex to include sexual orientation and gender identity. I wanted everyone to know that the United States Supreme Court will begin deliberations on 3 landmark cases to determine whether protected classes should be expanded to include sexual orientation and gender identity. I wanted to let you know that the United States Supreme Court has these cases on the docket for October, a little over 3 months from now. Now, what this resolution would not have done, while it is true that it would not have created any new protected classes, it would also have not prohibited any other ordinance or resolutions of any kind to come before this council to be voted on, regardless of their content. We didn't go into anyone's bedroom with this resolution. This resolution did not even give an opinion on how this council would wish the U.S. Supreme Court to rule, because frankly, our opinion is in no way pertinent to the case, and they don't care what we think. I know this resolution doesn't go far enough for the left. We've heard that tonight. It doesn't go far enough for the right. I've heard that as far as how tight the language is. My aim is always to work towards what is best for our community. And in this case, it was to share information that I learned about the legal landscape of our nation. Not to raise my voice, not to argue, not to place one belief over another, but to share what I found to be important information about what the United States Supreme Court is going to be doing very shortly. Why? Because that body's decision will affect laws across the nation, right down to every municipality. Their ruling will affect each one of us, no matter who we are, no matter what we personally believe. In the end, I thought receiving an update on this important information, no matter where our hearts were, would at least be something that we could do together. But sadly, rather than see this resolution fail, I moved to delete.
Okay, there's motion to delete by Watson, second by Freiberg. Any objections? Seeing none, Councilwoman Green.
I don't know when and how this may come back up again, so I just want to use my time and my space to talk about a subject that I love a lot, which is constitutional law. In the 1960s, as indicated by a number of people, Congress recognized that promoting equality among the American people would require law. At that time, in 1964, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 defined who gets protection and in what context. At that time, race, national origin, and religion were the protected classes. But Congress forgot a couple of classes. Forgot age, which was added in 1967. Forgot women, which was added in 1972. Forgot disability, which was added in 1992. These classes were added later on. They definitely went through some litigation. You guys know the history of civil rights. You know it went through litigation for years. You also know the history of civil rights where states disregarded federal law, or the court systems, even cities and their elected officials disregarded the law. And I said this and I paused and I'm a bit emotional because protected classes can be determined or can be created by laws. Thank you, LSU. Protected classes can be created by the court system. But it takes individuals that are elected to make some complete stances, to forget about all the things around them. And I'm not saying particularly how these classes would be determined, but I'm saying if you look at the history, we had to add classes at some point. We had to. Because sometimes when it was race, we talked about a number of reasons why people said that it shouldn't have been a class. I'm only speaking because when you think about constitutional law, there has to be a case of first impression, an opportunity for change to happen. That's all I want to say. Take that time to think about what East Baton Rouge Parish may do, how we can protect different classes. Are we considering all classes? And when in October it goes before the Supreme Court, what does that mean for us? Doesn't mean we need to wait, but what does it mean for us? And when will we make that change? Thank you.
Okay, council members, I had a motion to delete by Watson, second by Freiberg. Any objections? Seeing none, item 97 has been deleted.